Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever it is, wherever you are, welcome to the Good Values podcast. In this episode, we're going to be talking to somebody who I appreciate their work. I think they're a really nice person, very creative, very experimental, and I really appreciate how their mind works, and they really try to figure out new areas of invention and trying to be kind of, exploring different territories within the creative arts. So this episode, we're going to be talking to Mike Davies. Let's take a look. Would you mind introducing yourself for the viewers for us, please?
Hi, my name's Mike Davies. I'm a retired sign manufacturer. That involves sign writing, some graphic design and silkscreen printing.
Excellent. And how long have you been doing those different disciplines for?
I started when I was 14 years old, in fact, before I left school. It was an hour after school from 4 to 5 o'clock or 5:30, and then I do it as a Saturday job. Up until I left school, and then I actually formally started my apprenticeship on £4 a week.
That's amazing. Wow. And then you've recently gone to fine art as opposed to sign writing. But that's kind of, wasn't that you were initially hoping to do ceramics, is that correct? And then but within the fine arts type of discipline, I suppose, is that right?
No, I've had some experience of ceramics work, which I found quite interesting, but I didn't take that any further. I did that on my first year at Llandrillo College, and that was on a part-time 3-year art and design course.
Oh, okay. All right. And then, because I've seen a bit of your painting work, and you're obviously very skilled at fine art painting as well, like quite high, well-rendered 3D shapes and things like that, because I remember you just showing me the emoji painting, and when you were describing it to me, I thought as an idea it wouldn't work unless you could really heighten the 3D aspects of it. And when you showed it to me, I was really impressed, because I just thought as an idea it's just not going to work unless you can pull it off to that extent, and you seem to be able to do that really well.
Yeah, I've got a lot of experience of kind of turning ideas into something structural. As a sign manufacturer, your client would come in and have all these ideas about this and that, and you'd instantly know which ones are going to work and which ones aren't going to work. And so you formulate your own ideas which you know are going to work because you've done it before. And so I go for that step with fairly confident. My ability to paint, I think, is reasonable. It's not at the level. Well, it's not at the level that I used to want it to be. But I'm less concerned now about how real the paintings are. I'm more interested in what might be in the painting, or what the painting what I might want to try and say through a painting. Now is more important to me, but it still has to have that kind of level of realism for it to work.
Yeah, I suppose having that skill to the extent that you do have it now gives you the freedom to explore layers and kind of complicated aspects that you can introduce into a painting that are a bit more unconventional.
Yeah, I think you've got to learn to walk before you run, and I think a lot of people today are trying to run before they've even learned to walk. I see a lot of fresh sign writers, up and coming sign writers, who are starting off with some weird and wonderful lettering styles that they think is absolutely marvellous, and they're not. They're absolute. I'm not going to say they're rubbish, but they certainly need re-looking at from learn the sort of basics first, and then you'll know how to and what you can do and what you can't do.
Yeah, you've got to build on a solid foundation, haven't you, with everything? Yeah, absolutely. Well, I suppose it'd be quite interesting to find out what is it that you value about art?
That's a good question. I think you can extend, art can extend you, and you can extend yourself through art, and I don't just mean painting. You can do that in poetry, you can do that with music. There are some talented singers that sing about things, and there are other talented singers that take you to what they're singing about. They take you there. Dave Bowie is a good example of that.
Yeah.
Elton John sings about it. Dave Bowie sings it, and he takes you there. And that's the beauty of art. If I can paint something, and if I can take you into that painting, then that's my job done.
Oh, excellent. So it's kind of it's sort of your value of art is the ability to kind of transform the landscape into something else where somebody else can be transported there. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah,
and
that's really nice.
that's I went to an exhibition in Liverpool again when I was at Hundredwell College, and it was a Dutch artist, and he created a room full of smoke, strobe lighting, and very vibrant sounds. And you had to sign a disclaimer before you went in there. But as you went into this white room full of white smoke, the sounds turned into lights. And the more you went into the room, the more sounds you heard, the more lights you saw, the louder it got, the brighter it got. It took me to another place and time.
Yeah,
I've never had any art piece experienced any art piece like that. I've looked at paintings and almost felt like I was in the painting. I've looked at other paintings. One particular one was a Laughing Cavalier. Just for that split second, I could almost hear him actually laughing.
Yeah.
But this particular piece took me, and it took me like something that never happened to me like that before at such a level, and that's only heightened my interest in doing that through painting.
Yeah.
Because I think I'm a painter more than, well, I'm a printer, but I want to be a painter.
Yeah, well, you have started to show me how you're doing screen printing, but with unorthodox approaches to that as well. Is there anything that you can tell us about that?
Well, it's again, this was with John at uni. I was doing these let's say abstract shapes with and the inks being thrown about randomly on the screen before actually doing the print. And he suggested that I might try and put some thread on the canvas, paint the canvas different colours, put some thread on the canvas, little bits of paper and things like that. Overprint that and then remove the threads, remove the paper, and see what we've got that one. I thought, well, that's good. You know, I'm up for letting the art create itself. So I glued them down. I glued them all down and painted them, and then overprinted them, and I got this kind of a 3D effect. And which I'm really, really pleased with. I'm not always pleased with what I do. Most of what I do, I'm not pleased with. Until I go back a few days later, and then I can see something in it that I didn't see it originally. But with this form of screen printing that I was doing, I instantly liked it. It was such a surprise to me. It was such a surprise to me. I had no idea it was going to come out like that. As good as that.
Well, it sounds like the unknown as well, that you're kind of wandering into territory that you've not seen anyone else explore either. Yeah.
And one of the tutors actually said that that's what I was doing. He had a name for it, and he told me, he said, "Don't tell anybody I told you this, but this is what you're doing." And he had this name for it. I won't tell you who it was. You'd be surprised if I did, but anyway. And I thought, actually, you're right. I am going off into the unknown, and even if I don't get anything out of it, if I don't get an end result, and I'm exhibiting this week, other young artists might look at it and they go, "Bloody hell, I like that. How did he do that?" And they might start experimenting themselves. Yeah. You know, and then something might come of that.
Absolutely. I do think that a lot of trying to guess how someone has achieved something it's how people discover new ways of making different art themselves, because you never achieve the same as the artist who inspires you, but at the same time you'll venture into a new area of art making sometimes.
Yeah. But they don't have to guess that. If they want to know anything, I'll tell them.
Yeah. No, that's really good. So, I mean, how did you get started in art making as opposed to sign writing? What got you into the more artistic side than the graphic design?
I was a big fan of cartoons when I was very young. I'm talking about the age of kind of 7 and 8. And one of the cartoons that I used to draw a lot of was Popeye the Sailor Man.
Yeah, brilliant.
And then before I was drawing Popeye the Sailor Man, I used to trace cartoons. And then I'd take it down to my mum and say, look what I drew. And she'd go, oh, very good, Michael. And I walked away dead pleased with myself.
Yeah.
And then after I'd been doing that for a while, I thought, well, I'm cheating really. Maybe I'll try and draw myself and see if I actually can draw. So that's what I did, and I surprised myself because it was as good as the tracing. So of course I rushed downstairs to show my mum, look what I can do, Mum. She said, we know you can do that. No, this one, I did do this one. Yes, but you done the others as well, didn't you? Okay, no, I couldn't say no, Mum, I traced them.
Yeah.
So that gave me the confidence at a young age to, to have a go sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then when I was leaving junior school, so I'd be 10 years old, the art teacher, Mr. Roberts, he gave me a box with the 3 primary colours in it and a black and white, quite large tubes. And he says, here, Mike, he says, you have these, you might be able to do something with them that I can't. Which I didn't understand what he meant. So I always remember him saying it. Now I realise he must have thought I could paint.
Yeah.
And he probably didn't. He probably said to himself, well, I can't paint. These are no good to me. I'll give them to this child, sort of thing. That was a good tutor, you know. Yeah,
that's nice. You know, it's funny when you say about the tracing. I kind of think that there is something which you can gain from tracing early on, because put it this way, writers say the same thing, that if they admire someone's writing, they will rewrite every word that they've, of their favourite writer, just to get the rhythm and the cadence and get everything down that they've typed up. And as soon as they can do that, they know that they've retyped something of their favourite author, and they try to then use that type of rhythm to influence their own writing. So I think that tracing has a similar thing. When you score all of the marks of a professional illustrator, you're then replicating those movements and motions and line thickness, and that can really influence how you make your own mark. So I don't do down tracing to a certain extent. I do think that there's advantage to be had from that sometimes.
Well, it gave me confidence.
So after that then, what would you say is a more modern inspiration for art making to you? Like, who do you look at? I mean, whether it's film or art or illustration or music, who is it where you kind of like go, this makes me want to make art, or this influences my art in some way or other, even if your art making doesn't look anything like what you're looking at
today?
More modern influence.
My tutors, to be honest with you.
Really?
Yeah. Susie Williams was a tutor in the evening classes, not on a course. It was just evening classes.
Yeah.
And I had gone in with all these ideas of how I should be doing this or how I should be doing that, and she just completely turned me around, and just everything opened up then. So that was and then artists that influenced me today.
It doesn't have to be modern artists. For example, Leonardo da Vinci has a huge influence on my draftsmanship. Things like that. I just mean like more these days. Who do I emulate to a small extent? It's like even Van Gogh. Even though my work's nothing like Van Gogh, if I look at his work, I'll want to make artwork, and my work won't turn out anything like his, but I'll want to make something of my own.
Henry Moore.
Oh, really? Yeah, Henry Moore.
From a very early age.
Yeah.
I used to. So I could draw. So I must be some kind of an artist. I don't know how old I was.
Yeah.
But I'd look at his sculptures, and I just wondered what's the hell is that about, you know?
Yeah.
And then I saw one which was mother and child, and it was a big rock being a mother to a small rock.
Yeah.
It was a mother and child.
Yeah.
It wasn't, you know, a mummy and a baby.
Yeah.
It was a big rock with a small rock child, and I got it.
Yeah.
I just got it, and that interested me. So I started looking at some of his other work, and I sort of started to understand what he was trying to do. So that's one of them. Leonardo da Vinci, absolutely, and his inventions.
Yeah.
I would be about 12, 13, 14, 15, round about that age. I was in and out the library all the time with art books. The Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo.
That's right.
And then, of course, I found out that he really directed the Sistine Chapel.
Yeah.
He didn't actually paint it.
No, he had a staff, didn't he?
So that's an eye opener.
Yeah.
So so that's another level that I've kind of more understanding about art. You don't actually have to do it, and even to this day, with I can't remember his name, but there's a few artists today that do it. Edwin Hopper.
Yeah.
Amazing artist. Now he had a level of realism that was good, but it was, and I've watched a few videos on his work, and I think it's explained well when they're saying it's his paintings are about something that's about to happen. It makes you wonder what is about to happen now, or it might be a case of something's just happened, and now we're here after the event. What was it that happened? And I thought that's a great way of explaining his paintings.
Yeah.
He's probably between him and David Hockney.
Oh yeah, David Hockney. Yeah, I think both of those are quite cinematic. Even like Hockney's, even though it's very stylized, I still think it reminds me of certain cinema that I watch, which I really like in a painter. And you know, David Hopper especially, because that really does look like either noir or just something from a scene in a film. And Hockney's a similar thing where when I look at his work, I do think, I'm sure I've seen things like this in good filmmaking, where it's just, I think it's the angle that he chooses, the vantage point, you know?
Yeah, with Hopper, Hollywood use his painting for a lot of sets. With Hockney's done one short video called The Tunnel.
I've not seen that.
You'll not stop watching. You'll go back and back.
Yeah.
And the music is by a Japanese artist, and I can't remember the Japanese artist's name. If you want to look it up, it's well worth watching.
Yeah.
He's a working artist. He gets up at 6:30 in the morning. He's out by 7. He's had his breakfast. He's out by 7.
Yeah.
You see him set his thing up with his partner, who's making him his coffees, and he's having his fags, and he's painting. He's putting all the basic colours down. By the time he's finishing the painting at sort of 7 or 8 in the evening, the lights completely changed.
Yeah.
His colour palette's now changed with the day.
Yeah.
He was more blue colours in the morning and more orange colours in the evening.
Of course,
throughout the whole day, you know, fantastic.
Amazing. That's fantastic, isn't it? Yeah, really inspiring as well.
I was going to see his exhibition in London, but you had to wait. You had to get a ticket, and there was 3 on that day, and you had to. The exhibition was on for about 40 minutes. Then there was a 20-minute wait to go into the next one, and there was no more tickets. I would have to spend waiting about 40 minutes, and I didn't have time.
Yeah.
Didn't have time.
Yeah.
I will do one day though.
That does sound
But
strange.
another thing with him, and again I can't remember the name of the painting, but it was when he was in America. The scene is looking out into the desert with a road sign on the right hand side, and the scene as it goes back, it's actually made up of Polaroid photographs.
Really?
This was in the 80s when a Polaroid camera came out.
Yeah.
He used that to make a collage.
Brilliant.
And that reminded me that it's using what's available today. It's using the latest tools to create your art.
Yeah.
No rules, only tools. And that was a good example of that. And that made me kind of look at the vinyl plotter that I've got. It started to make me think, well, could I use that in some way? And so what I use that now. I scan various images, and I adjust the contrast on the computer, and I send it to the cutter to cut stencils, and I can change how the stencils are cut in lots of different ways. And that's what I'm playing with at the moment on the screen printing side.
Right.
Is scanning these different images and creating different images, vectorizing them, sending them to the plotter, cutting them, use them as I've just finished now setting up a 3-colour print using trichromatic inks.
Oh, right, okay.
And that's going to be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
That's going to be.
Yeah, that's really
actually the plotter isn't working properly because it's messing up the letter shapes completely. I don't know what's wrong. But it's messing them up, and I thought, well, I can't use that. And I thought, hang on a minute, why can't I use it? Well, the letters aren't perfect, so what?
Yeah.
So I cut the 3 stencils with all these imperfect letters, but hopefully at the end of that, I'm going to get something that, and I look at it and I go, yep.
Yeah.
I've got a feeling it's going to work.
Yeah.
I got a feeling it's going to work, which means that you don't have to have any knowledge about lettering shapes. You can just do any way you want. And if I can get this to work, then anybody can get it to work.
Yeah. I would say, I just think that because you've got a foundation of knowledge, you've still got an advantage on imperfection, because you'll have this sense of balance, won't you? I mean, you've always kind of now imposed.
Yes, okay, I agree with you on that.
Yeah. So I think that's a real thing which I value highly. So, but at the same time, I'm curious as whether your work has a colour palette. Like, do you have colours that you like using quite often and introducing?
Yes, it's French ultramarine.
Oh yeah.
Cadmium red, cadmium yellow, white and brown.
Really?
And I watched this guy doing colour mixing, and 99% of any colour you put in front of him, he would mix with those colours.
Wow.
And he says if you get 4 parts, it doesn't have to be French ultramarine, but that's what he uses. It's going to be just ultramarine. 4 parts ultramarine blue, 2 parts cadmium red, 1 part cadmium yellow. Mix it all up, and you got black.
Yeah, because ultramarine's so strong, isn't it? It's just such a strong pigment. I was thinking, because I use cadmium red and I use process yellow because they're very flat. So I quite like a limited colour palette because I want everything to be fairly tertiary. You know, I want it to all be mixed so it's not something too vibrant. I quite like pasty, whited out colours. And then within that, you've got a range where the darkest you can make is a purple or browny purple, you know. Yeah. So I think
there's another colour.
Sorry, go on.
There's another colour palette which a particular artist uses, and I can't remember the artist's name. Maybe I can look it up and get it to you. But it's mid ochre. It's mid ochre. It's like a maroon, and I can't remember what they are. But I mean, the fact that he uses mid ochre instead of yellow.
Yeah. Is it the Zorn palette, though, by any chance? Is it called Zorn? Because that comes from a guy called Anders Zorn, you know. And Anders Zorn is a phenomenal draftsman as well. Really good.
Yeah.
Really interesting.
That's the one. I was so impressed with that palette.
Yeah. It's only I can only find it in oil. I can't find it in acrylic. Because I use acrylic mainly.
Right.
So I think it only exists in oil. I could be wrong. I'll have to look. But yeah, I've been tempted to try. I've never tried it, but it does look really interesting. Yeah, nice. No, I like the idea of a specific palette will give you height in kind of in certain areas, just like how you said with the ultramarine. Yeah.
There's another one which if you add, I think it's Lydian blue.
All right. Okay.
There's a red. These are artificial colours. They're not natural. They're very artificial colours. and the very small amount that you can't get with those others, you can get using these.
Really?
And it's if you were to look at a traffic light on red, it's not a natural red.
No.
And the only way you can get it is by introducing this particular red.
Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I like
I found it very interesting.
Yeah, I do like playing around with palettes and seeing what's possible and what's outside of the range of certain colours' ability to stretch beyond that.
I once put a little bit of black down, and I started introducing yellow into it. And the more yellow I put into it, the more green it went.
So it's a specific type of black, because there's different types of black, isn't there? There's because I've found that I've got a couple of types of black myself in acrylic, and one is bluer than the other one, and that will give you a green with the yellow, whereas the other one is redder than the other. But you can't see them until they're next to each other. Next to other colours, they just look black. Next to each other, one is cooler and one's warmer, and it's very subtle. But that does mean that as a mixing colour, it has this interesting ability to introduce it.
There's a painting in Tate, Liverpool, and it's black.
Yeah.
But it actually consists of something like about 30 different black squares.
Really?
And every single one of them is black, and every single one of them is different.
Oh wow! So it's not a Mark Rothko then, is it? Where it's using subtle bleeding edges or anything? Because I quite like Rothko. I know that he's quite he splits people where some people really don't like it. I quite like it, to be honest, and it's very conceptual.
I read about him. About the work he done for I think it was a restaurant or something like that, and he took it there. The guy said, "Okay, fine," but when he took it there, he decided it wasn't going to be right, so he donated it to the Tate in London. Yeah, it's in a particular room now in the Tate. Have you been to it?
I haven't, but I've heard he's got a residency there, and unfortunately, it was after he passed where it was then installed. Yeah,
it's amazing. You walk in that room, these massive big canvases, these massive browns, and everything like you. It's an experience to walk into it, And for paint to do that, it's like I was talking to you before. If it moves you,
absolutely, it becomes surreal, doesn't it? Where you're walking into almost a movie scene yourself, where you feel there's a certain heightened reality to it. And I have that with giant fabric and textiles. And like you said, with the smoke effects and light can really create that quite well, and especially sound. And Rothko has that for the grandiose scale and ability to bleed colours.
I went into a gallery in towards mid Wales.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called. In fact, they weren't open, but they let me in. And I was looking at this painting. It was about 4 foot by 2 foot of a waterfall. Very, very dark colours, dark greens. It was just so dull, and I thought, well, that's typical of North Wales on a rainy day in winter. Yeah. I thought, this guy's good,
Yeah.
And I just kept looking at it to see, because sometimes I look at a painting and then I'll see something I didn't notice before, and the more I look at it, the more I saw. And the more I looked at this painting, I must have been looking at it for about 20 minutes. And it was only towards the end that I realised I was now looking at a completely different painting.
Really?
The greens were bright green, the water was colourful. This painting changed, or my perception of the painting changed in a space of 20 minutes from this dull, horrible thing that you spend on a rainy afternoon with the clouds over in North Wales, to this beautiful waterfall with the colours and it was a major transformation.
Do you know who it was? Was it that chap?
A local artist.
Was it? Because there is a guy who does especially grey paintings, and there's one in Finney Park, and it's worth millions. Barnmouth, is that where you were? Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's one guy who specialises in it. I forgot his name now. Let me try and think. But it's worth millions, his paintings. He's known for that colour palette of especially oppressive greys. And so I can imagine he'll be the influence if it wasn't his painting. But he's a bit of a master of this. I forgot what he's called now. It's really... I'm going to have to do an insert into the episode where I put up one of his paintings in his name. And I'll send it to you so that you know, because...
Did Did you say it's been in Finner Park?
He's got one in Finner Park. They purchased one. I don't know if it's still for sale, but it was over £1 million when I went up and saw it upstairs. Fantastic. As far as I was asked by the person who I was with what I thought of it, and I said it's very, stylized. It's very oppressive with the colours, and then she said, "Have a look at the price." I looked, and it was something like $2.5 million or something like that. I was just like, "Oh my God, why?" Oh, Cuffin Williams, that's his name. Cuffin Williams. And she goes, "It's a Cuffin Williams painting."
Oh, right.
And I was just like, "Wow,
right.
That's insane. That's madness." But she said, "Yeah, he's known for it. He's made Welsh paintings have a feel to them which nobody else has with his ability to have this grey colour palette. Really impressive."
Yeah, again, that one of the impressed by that artist, and his use of the palette knives absolutely amazing.
Yeah, I've never done that. Have you ever tried palette knives?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I need to try that. It's
Say no more.
Yeah, I've tried them. Yeah, moving on.
There's a few artists in North Wales, and I can't remember their names, but when you look at the paintings, you know that they were influenced by Guffin Williams.
Brilliant. What do you see? Because it's got almost like quite an old-fashioned style to the Cuffin Williams approach. I think it sort of it speaks of quite, like almost a history of weather and how it's perceived, in North Wales as far as quite a damp and grey climate a lot of the time.
Yeah.
How do you see the future of art, do you think?
Of art in general?
Of art making.
It's such a big question because in art I would include everything from poetry to filmmaking. Where is it going? Oh, I don't know where it's going.
It's a bit mysterious because it is quite fluid, and I think, I could be wrong, but I think things are quite cyclical, which means that I think things which are old-fashioned today will come back into fashion, just like fashion. Do you know what I mean? So I think that things get reintroduced. So dip pens have got a bit of a resurgence in the last few years because of certain YouTubers who will use dip pens, and it will make young people go, "I want to use dip pens. I want a pot of ink and a pen that I can dip into it and then do a drawing with."
Yeah,
I think that it could be similar to that.
I think the weird and wonderful, abstract everything. I don't know if has that gone as far as it's going to go. I hope so. But yeah, I'd like to say, right, okay, you go that way and carry on with that stuff. I'm going to look somewhere else and see what I can find. And you mentioning that about a dip pen, it's a good example of that. And bringing back some traditional values. I think a lot of artists and potential artists, I think they go for the traditional values, but because they're so hard to master, they just might get a little bit lazy and say, "Well, I'm going to skip that. I don't want to spend 2 weeks learning how to do that." And it's being lazy, and you're not going to get the same satisfaction at the end of a piece of work that it took you months learning how to grasp that particular art in that work that you're doing. Great deal of satisfaction. I've finished painting, and I'm looking at one now. It's probably the best painting I've ever painted. The feeling of satisfaction when I finished that painting, never felt so much satisfaction in my entire life to do with my art. And I've done some weird and wonderful stuff for some of the tutors, and I felt nothing at the end of it. One example is we had to do something with string, and I played around with it. I used my imagination. I put some on the floor and glued it on the floor and painted over it and took some paint off it, and zilch, nothing. So as far as I'm concerned, that can take that, you know, how far, where do you stop on that? On the weird and wonderful. And I understood the weird and wonderful for decades. And I first came across, I can remember doing a collage in junior school. Obviously the tutors must have been bang up to date, because I'm talking about the late 50s. So the tutors were bang up to date with what was going on then, because that's what they were showing us to do. So you know, the weird and wonderful isn't something new to me, but I just wonder, where do you draw the line with it?
Yeah. A question I often ask, and I'll try to ask in every episode, is what is the most beautiful thing that you've seen today?
My dog.
Yeah, which one? You've got two there now, so which one have you playing favourites? The
male. I took him for his usual walk, and there's a particular garden that has a cat, and whenever we get near that garden, his ears prick up. And we got round the corner, and he just stood up on his two legs. He put his front two legs on the wall, and the pose he had, it was beautiful. He was beautiful, absolutely. His whole pose. He's the most handsomest dog I've ever seen.
So
that's the most beautiful thing.
So was the pose, he was excited to see the cat, or was he aggressive about the cat? How was he kind of, what were you getting from him?
Oh no, he's always excited. He's always excited. He's not aggressive at all. Not aggressive.
Lovely. So he was kind of wanting to see the cat as a friend. He could kind of sense that it was there.
Yeah, very much so. But he's such a magnificent. I wish I could the words to describe it, but he was magnificent. His pose was magnificent. Absolutely amazing.
Lovely. Yeah, well, if you can picture it, you can potentially replicate it. See if you can draw it at some point, because that sounds lovely.
Yeah.
Really nice.
Yeah. I should have taken a photograph.
There's not always the time. Your eyes have got to soak it up. You've got to try and appreciate these moments. But that's really nice. That's a unique answer. I've not had that before. So lovely. There's another kind of double question in one. And that is, what do you like and what don't you like about your own artwork?
What do I don't like? I like when I achieve what I've aimed to achieve, then that's what I like about. Another thing I like about, and this is something I learned at Coleg Menai Bangor, we had to just sit down, get our paints out on the table in front of us, a little piece of card, and we had to do this particular copy of this painting. And I had never done that. Never sat down in front of the table with this little box of paints, and you know, I'm up there on the ladder and me there throwing this around and what have you. And it took me back to being an 8-year-old child with my pot of paints on my little desk, and I just felt so strange. But I liked it. I really liked feeling like this 8-year-old child, and that was one of the best afternoons I'd spent. So I didn't know you could be so relaxed. So now when people talk about therapeutic art, I know exactly what they're talking about. I know exactly the kind of effect it can have. One thing I don't like about my art is that I don't like it. It takes me a long time. Most of what I do, I don't like. I've probably got about 80 paintings just stacked up under my van. Just rotting away and getting covered in the weather because they're not going on my wall. But a lot of the time, and this is happening more and more now, whether it's because I'm practicing more or painting more or doing more, but I'll not like what I've done, but I'll go back a few days later and see that it's got potential. See that it's got something that I didn't see before. Or I might look at something and I see a painting within that painting.
Yeah, that's good.
So I could cut that out there. I just need to put a bit there, put that there. Let's move this here. So this is a big learning curve for me, because this is all. And maybe it's because going to university, going to college, mixing with other people who are into art. Maybe that helps a great deal. I think it probably does.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, that's really good critical analysis, and I appreciate the ability to evaluate your work for positives and negatives, because I think that's really important for all artists.
Yeah, I think it's important to be balanced.
Yeah.
It's all in the balance.
So
yeah. Another thing is when I've done something that I didn't like and other people like it, I then go back to it and go, what did they like about this? What is it? What could they like about it? Or maybe they like the colour. So then I'm looking at it differently now, because somebody else likes that. I don't like it, but somebody does. So what did they see in it? And I've got lots of prints. One particular set of prints I did of a white cottage up in the mountains. Horrible dark colours. But it's exactly what a rainy day in the mountains of Snowdonia is like, you know? And this one guy in my studio, and I was talking about stuff that I liked. He said, I like that. I said, what, you like that? And this was I said, well, you want it, mate, you have it. If you like it, you can have it. And I signed it for him and everything.
Wow. I hope you got a photograph of it, because it's worth getting pictures of it. Did you get a photograph of it?
I've done a run of about eight or 10 prints.
Oh, have you? Because I'd like to see it as an example. Yeah, that would be nice to show.
I'll take some photographs and I'll
It's funny, isn't it? Because this is a piece that you're not especially impressed with or kind of, fond of. And yet that becomes a point of interest where someone else has seen something in it. It would be interesting to see the difference, what they've seen and what you kind of, don't value about it.
Well, each print is different, because I change the inks around on every pull. So every single print is different. On one of the prints, I didn't print the green part of the green background. I thought, what's this going to look like? So it looks like a wintry scene with snow. Yeah. But it's still cold, it's still dark and damp, and it's still rainy and dull up in the mountains in North Wales.
That's interesting. I suppose it is just creating that environment, isn't it, which people do become engrossed with it.
I've got one print there. Do you want me to show you? I don't know how well you're going to see this. But this is another one apart from that one. With this one, I left the green out on the fields. I also left the grey, very dark grey, orange evening sunset on the sky. That was left out as well. So you've got the sky as like white clouds and the snow. I don't know how well you're going to see this, but...
Oh, wow, okay, yeah, I like that. That's really interesting. Wow.
So anybody can do that. Anybody can do that on a kitchen table.
That's really interesting.
That's what I've gone back to is what I learnt when I was 14 and 15, learnt to do, because I don't see anybody doing it.
Yeah. And
it's a shame that nobody's doing it, because they don't know how to do it, or how easy. It's not easy to do. It's there is a skill level in it, and there are particular knives to, there are particular tools that are better than other tools.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm kind of at with it at the moment. I'm all set up for photography stencils as well, but I'm leaving that to one side at the moment.
Because you are planning on launching your own channel with tutorials and things on, is that correct?
Yeah, that's on the sign writing side and the screen printing side. Yeah.
Well, that was really nice. I really appreciate that. It was fun to talk to you and to pick your brain about a couple of topics. It's always nice having a chat and catching up with you. And we'll definitely get you on the channel again. And there's always going to be updates because you're quite a busy person. So I appreciate you being on the podcast.
Love the greenery, Simon.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you. That's a recent addition to the studio, and it was actually Becky's most beautiful thing she'd seen today. She said was that plant there. It was very sweet of her. Yeah, it was very nice. I really appreciate you coming on. Thank you for your time. Excellent. All right. I'll see you again. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so that's the episode done. Now, I thought that was a really nice conversation. I loved seeing the screen printing work that Mike does, as well as a bit of the painting and talking about different artists and people who were influential to Mike. So I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave a like, comment down below, subscribe to the channel and ring that notification bell, and I will see you in the next episode.